Beautiful day. It's just a bit windy, so hopefully I can get through this pretty quickly. We'll be talking about a theory of execution and mastery of a skill. So it's like a theory of learning. So there's 4 stages to this theory. There is unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, messing it up, unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and then unconscious competence. So all this is describing is whether you have to think the conscious or unconscious part of things, and whether you're able to execute the skill, which is the competence or incompetence part of things. So if you're not able to, if you don't know, or you're not thinking, and you're not good at the skill, you would be in the unconscious incompetence part of the skill. A lot of the people that I coach fall within the conscious incompetence. They know that they're not executing the skill well, and when I give them certain cues or teaching points, they fall into the conscious competence, which is where you are able to execute the skill, but only when you're really thinking about executing, or like thinking about those cues or the learning points. So the reason I bring this up is I want you to sort of reflect on what parts or what skills that you can execute when you are thinking about it, or what you're struggling with, and maybe you don't know what's going wrong, and then see where you lie in those 4 stages of learning or execution of the skill. I bring this up because I have experienced what I would call 3 different mindsets. So I have a learning mindset, I have a practice mindset, and I have an execution mindset, or a game mindset. So I was very blessed to have a few coaches that allowed me to focus on a learning mindset where all I am doing is focusing on the process of what is happening. So whether it be something in my hands or whether it be my footwork, I would focus on the process and never the result. And I would just spend the session making whatever errors that weren't relevant to what I was focusing on. So if I was focusing on my hands, it didn't matter how bad my steps were. If my hands did what I wanted them to do, like for example, the way I teach it is follow through evenly and all these other points. If my hands did that, that was a success. And that's all I needed. Or if I was working on footwork, didn't matter how messy my hands were, if the sets were too wide, short, over the net, off the net. If my footwork was good and I was squaring up the right way, very good, happy days. So that's the learning mindset and the learning side of things. When I go into the practice mindset, I do my best to apply everything I've learnt into practice, where the reps get a bit faster and I start to think about the execution a little bit more. It does mean that my practice, my learning form does suffer a bit. Sometimes I don't finish equally, or sometimes I don't make the correct footwork, for example. But now I'm trying to get the feel of how everything connects to create a result. One of the things that I would usually think about in this mindset is how it feels and what the result is. So for example, if I felt like this much amount of push, let's say an arbitrary 80% push, and I push the ball one ball too far outside the antenna, I would then reflect on that and I would think, okay, from this distance, an 80% push, or a push that felt like this, was one ball too wide. I put that in my memory bank, and then I would fix it for the next one. I'd go maybe 70% push, and then I'd make those adjustments. That's what practice is for. Well, that's what it's like for me. And then execution or game mindsets, I would only focus on the result. Whatever that needs to happen to get the result that I needed was all that I need to worry about. Now, it was always very important to use my learning and then apply it into my practice. And then all the practice I did, which was still focusing on the cues I needed to in the learning stage of it, of mindset, I would bring into execution. If things weren't going right in execution or in game, I would think back to practice, or I think back to learning, and I would say, what do I need to do to make sure I execute the same way I was in practice? And then I'd apply it. When you get there, you just need the ball to do whatever you need it to do, whether it be make a kill, whether it be make a set, whether it be like run off the net or make a block, whatever it is, you just need to execute the skill. So to go back to the beginning, most people are stuck in that conscious incompetence where they know that they're not executing well, or the conscious competence where they can only execute the skill in practice or in learning. So the way that we can get to unconscious competence is just through repeated, focused repetitions of practice. And there are drills that you can do that simulate game-like experiences where you need to be applying the practice mindset into the execution mindset, where you still focus on the practicing side of things, but you're really focused on trying to like execute in the moment. It might be a bit confusing to explain, but it's about applying the previous mindsets to the future mindsets, so that when you get to a game, it's no longer like a question of whether you can execute. It just becomes execution. It becomes fluid. This comes from like a story from my Olympic lifting and from my beach volleyball days. So there'll be a day where I explain my whole story about that. It'll be a bit of a longer video. Hopefully I don't miss out on anything. But just for today, I hope that explains the stages of learning that I teach in, and also the mindsets that I use, that I personally use, that I think are very helpful for your development as a player. The learning mindset, practice mindset, execution mindset, and why when we can use those to better ourselves. Perfect timing for my phone to fall down means that it's time for the end of the video. So thank you very much.